37 years old, but Steph Curry is not out of magic. The Warriors outlast the Rockets in a battle. We get into it all now on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? You are locked on to NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Thanks for being an everydayer and making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. Filling in for Danny Cunningham as he had to cover the Cavs. I am Gavin, Schall, the co-host of the Locked On Knicks podcast, and joining me, your usual Sunday night co-host, Swipa, the co-host of the Locked On Nuggets podcast. Incredible first weekend of playoff hoops. I think it lived up to the really high standards of hype we had coming in for this particular playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, you don't know with some of these matchups exactly what you're going to get. You know, we have some expectations going into some of these games, but I think day one of the NBA playoffs showed us that we really only know but so much. And when you get in these settings, you don't know how the game is going to turn out. You don't know how the energy of the game is going to impact how players are shooting the ball, playing defense. We don't take into account how important rebounding is going to be on a possessional by possessional basis. And then on top of that, you got veterans, you got young guys, rookies, you got teams that are at the top of the conference in the Lakers and also in the Houston Rockets. Both of them taking losses to lower seeds because the Western Conference is a bloodbath and every team has advantages.
It was, I think, maybe slightly lackluster second day, and then that Warriors-Rockets game just made me forget all about it. We're going to talk about it in just a second, but first we want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets. Win your first $5 bet wins. All right, let's get into it. Warriors-Rockets. Warriors behind a throwback. I hesitate to say throwback because he's played like a first-team All-NBA guy since the All-Star break, but I'll just say a standard performance for one of the top 10 best players of all time. He's far and away the best shooter ever. 37 years old, Steph Curry, 31, 6, and 3. Between that and a Jimmy Butler-led second quarter run, Warriors took a 23-point lead swipe. It looked like they were going to run away with this one. Rockets pivot. They finally go to that double big lineup with Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün. That's been the best two-man combo in the NBA this season. They come back. They cut it all the way down to 4. Warriors, their stars, their role players, everything clicks down the stretch. 10-point win. This game felt like what you would see, maybe not conference finals, but certainly second round, just in terms of the competitiveness, the physicality, the athleticism, the skill level on the Warriors side. Really had everything you're looking for, and what I think a lot of people expect to potentially be our best series of the first round.
Yeah, and today I would say that while the big names, Steph, Butler, Draymond, all had really important moments today, it was Moses Moody down the stretch of this game that had 2 huge buckets to help them to extend the lead from like 4 back all the way to 9. And then on top of that, he got a defensive play too, getting his hand in there on some passes that were trying to get entered into the paint. He just did a great job. And the thing that the Warriors need to have, you know that Jimmy Butler is going to be there in some way, shape, and form. You know Steph is going to be there, and he's going to lead their offense. Draymond's going to anchor their defense. Who can show up and do some of the intermediate things to help them continue to sustain a lead or build a lead or come back from a deficit? And I think Pods did that at times today. Moses Moody did that at times today. Gary Payton II did that at times. Got a nice finish in the zone when the Rockets were trying to wall off Steph Curry. He did a great job in possessions. You know, you don't get anything from Quentin Post or Buddy Hield today, but look, they got enough to get the win. And look, 43 missed shots for the Houston Rockets, y'all. 22 offensive rebounds for the Houston Rockets. I mean, they rebounded half of their misses today. Honestly, that is going to be their engine in this series. They have to win the rebounding battle because, Gavin, as we saw down the stretch of the game, they just don't have the shot makers and play creators to put consistent pressure on you as an offense.
I want to go back to the Warriors role players, because I think it was maybe the underrated part of the Jimmy Butler trade. Not only do you get Jimmy Butler, but everyone just goes down a spot in the pecking order. And Steph was frankly overtaxed early this year. Podziemski was overtaxed. Draymond was overtaxed. Kuminga, when he was on the court and obviously not playing anymore, he was overtaxed. Moody was overtaxed. And when you push those guys down, they become so much more efficient. You allow them to focus on doing the little things. And to your point on Moody, like, the fact that those shots were late in the shot clock, and to me, that's how Golden State ultimately won this game, right? Like, late shot clock, shot making. Most of it was Steph. Like, it felt like we were flashing back to the Olympics, where it was just out of body experiences. Like, late in the first half, hits that pull up 28-footer on. That was his first three of the game. Came with less than 2 minutes to go in the first half. Put them up by 7, and then early second half off a DHO logo 3 that completed a 10-0 run after they had the 19-3 Jimmy Butler led run in the second quarter. And then in the third and fourth, it was even better. Like, shot clock winding down, Jalen Green switched on to him. He plays perfect defense. It was the best defensive possession of Jalen Green's life. And Steph hits a 3, falling out of bounds, like landing in the crowd. And you just kind of like put your hands on your head and you're like, I can't even say what I want to say on that. And then had one more to beat the shot clock. That made it 72-62 right before Houston, like kind of or right in the midst of that Houston run when they went double big. They were pushing back. Moody, I mean, he hit that fadeaway that made it 77-73. And then Jimmy Butler late in this game, like last 2 possessions, offensive rebound, put back to make it 89-81, pull up jumper in Şengün's face to make it 91-81. That put the game away. Draymond, brilliant defensively throughout. I want to get to the Houston Rockets side of it, but first let's hear from Charlie Walter, the co-host of the Locked On Warriors podcast, on what this win meant for Golden State.
Look, we've seen it all year long. In fact, we saw it early in the season against Houston when they almost blew a 30-point lead in a game that went into overtime. It's that no lead is safe when it comes to the Golden State Warriors this season. It's just been the way they've handled business all season long. Sometimes they've blown these big leads. Other times, like tonight, they have just enough firepower down the stretch to get it done. And tonight, it was a little bit of everyone. Like, Steph Curry leads the way with 31. Jimmy Butler had 25. That was the main reason the Golden State Warriors were able to get out to this big lead. But let's not forget the impact of Moses Moody burying a huge 3 late in the game, hitting a huge fadeaway jumper. Brandon Podziemski getting to the free throw line. Brandon Podziemski getting on the offensive glass and creating an extra opportunity for Draymond Green. Like, that was the difference down the stretch of this game, because the Rockets, we all know how they're going to win games in this series. It's through defense, and it is through turning the Warriors over, and mainly it's from dominating the glass. And they dominated the glass today. However, late in the game, the Warriors really bucked up in that sense. They gave the ball to Jimmy Butler whenever they needed a basket, and playoff Jimmy was real. Elbow jumpers, strong takes, transition dunks, and some big threes as the Warriors are able to beat the Rockets by 10 in their home gymnasium and take a 1-0 series lead. See you on the Locked On Warriors postgame show, everyone.
All right, so that was the Warriors' perspective. Rockets, do you think they found something with Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün? I was a little bit surprised they didn't go to that earlier. 334 possessions this year, a plus 30 net rating. They are a 100th percentile offensive rebounding team. When they're on the floor, they rebound 50% of their opponent's misses. 100%, 100th percentile defensive rebounding team. 26-5 run they put together with those 2 guys on the floor. Initially, it was just Steven Adams. Felt like Golden State didn't really have an answer for that other than some Steph magic down the stretch.
Yeah, look, I talked about this a little bit going into the playoffs. That was going to be their best option. It's just playing the 2 biggest guys on the team, trying to win the offensive rebounding battle, which they did today. But look, it's really difficult, Gavin, to make that your playoff offense. It's really difficult to say this is the thing that's going to help us win a series versus a talented team that's a 2-way team built like the Warriors. Eventually that's going to go cold. That's not going to work. You're going to have some outside shooting. And I think clogging the paint, you're hurting the Warriors because you're getting offensive rebound, but you're hurting yourself on the offensive end. And then also Şengün, at the end of the game, he was trying to take Draymond Green to the hole. It's just like they have so many issues they're running into. And then Jalen Green, who we've not talked to at all, was nowhere to be seen today. Like, legitimately did nothing truly positive offensively for this team. And again, in the game, they scored 85 points. you are trying to rely on Jalen Green and Iman Thompson, for that matter, to be able to score more consistently, and they just don't have the guys right now to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, their backcourt, Jalen Green, 3 for 15, Fred VanVleet, 4 for 19, and that actually got better down the stretch of the game. So combined 7 of 34 from your starting backcourt, 2 of your 4 leading scorers on the season. I feel like that's been a theme all season long with Fred VanVleet in big games, tries to take on that role, tries to be the guy, just not quite able to do it against the defense as good as the Warriors. Jalen Green settling late in this game, had a lane, took a pull-up jumper instead and clanked it off front iron. I think the one thing I found encouraging, maybe I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, is that the shot making isn't totally there. So I'm with you on that. I thought Amen Thompson had a bunch of really consequential plays down the stretch of this game, like had that drive, spray to Jabari Smith Jr. that made it 76-71. Next time down, posts up Steph, hits a double pump jumper over him, goes across the lane, hits another fadeaway, made it 79-75. Gets a dribble handoff, 8 seconds on the clock. Nash dribble, double team, falling out of bounds, slings it out to VanVleet, made it 83-80. Obviously, from there, Houston didn't really have anything. And I think it's still fair to say, and it's where I've doubted this team all year, there just isn't enough creation. But I think if they ultimately lose this series because of that, but they come away saying, hey, Amen Thompson could be that guy going forward, that's borderline a win for the Rockets, even if they are the 2 seed and have the expectations that come with that.
Yeah, sure. I think Amen's he has a bright future. He's going to be an all-NBA player. But again, if we're talking about how do they win this series, they have to have better shot conversion. And that's the end of the day. Like, at the end of the day, you have to make shots. You have to score. You score 85 points tonight. Your defense can be as good as it wants, but you have to be able to finish possessions. And tonight, their best players were not able to do that.
They score, 34 points in the first half of this game, season low. 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Şengün was the only guy in double figures. The Rockets need to find some scoring fast. The team that does not need to search far for offense, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they got a historic win over the Grizzlies we're going to talk about in just a sec here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is? Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Door Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, DoorDash members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop. The very next stage is place an order of $20 or more. Use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight. The day after the game. Terms apply. After an epic game like that, I'm going to tell you, maybe this is a weird order, Swipa. I ordered some green curry ramen. I know that's very specific, but man, I need something hearty after sitting on my couch, burning calories, sweating through 4 games. So that really did it for me. So here's the play for everyone else. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a crispy 3-piece tender combo from Wingstop the very next day with a $20 or more order and code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass. Your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, what's up, guys? We are back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Let's hear from Rylan Stiles and the Oklahoma City Thunder after they put a world of hurt on the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oklahoma City Thunder get a dominating win against the Memphis Grizzlies in game number 1 of the NBA playoffs for them. In the first round, it was defense that stood out for Oklahoma City. The Thunder not only held Memphis below 100, not only below 90, but to 80 points in this game. They made Jaren Jackson Jr. a non-factor with only 4 points. It was Ja Morant who was inefficient. Desmond Bane, who just was floating around the court and not in a good way. No one from Memphis played well tonight because the Thunder's suffocating defense just dejected them. And then offensively, it was the youngsters. It was Chet Holmgren and J-Dub in their second ever taste of playoff basketball. They were able to deliver in a massive way. J-Dub especially led the charge for OKC, being a facilitator, getting 20 points of his own. No one had to play heavy minutes in this one because it was a non-game after about 3 minutes into the third quarter when the Thunder really put the hammer down out of halftime. It was a special performance. Lou Dort was just excellent. The fact that he was snubbed from Depoy is interesting, but nonetheless, the Thunder have to head into game 2 and carry over this same mentality. SGA, very quiet night, but he just missed shots. It was nothing Memphis was doing to contain him, so you imagine Shea will bounce back in game 2. We'll have all of it over there at Locked On Thunder.
Swipa, historic win. It is the 7th time in NBA history a team wins a playoff game by 50 or more. 7 points shy of the biggest win in playoff history. And the guy who's probably going to win MVP didn't really have to do much. He was 1 for 6, and they were up. I think it was 63-28 at that point. I mean, what more can we say about the greatness of this Oklahoma City team?
Yeah, I mean, just utterly dominant. The other team looked like it had no business being on the same floor with them, and they had their guys available as well. Like, they got outclassed from start to finish, from execution, coaching, shot making, defense. They harassed the Memphis Grizzlies, and I feel like, some of us had an idea. I picked a sweep in this series for OKC. I think they just have so many advantages, and nothing that Memphis does makes them work. So this is, for me, probably going to be a really short series. And today, that was just a sign that, like, we have things that we're trying to accomplish this season, and you are just simply a stepping stone in the direction we're trying to move in.
I just sometimes come down to this idea, and this is coming from someone who picked the Celtics to win the finals this year, both preseason and before the playoffs. And I just wonder, are we overanalyzing this? We're just watching a historically great team, and part of it is, like, I think you almost feel low on them because they bring it every night, right? There's no inconsistency. There's no, like, we're so much more talented than this team. We don't have to play like our hair's on fire. It's every night. It's every possession. It's every moment. They just dominate the point of attack on both ends of the floor. Consistent advantage creation in the half court. Even when Shea's off, it's J-Dub over and over again. Just like spoon feeding shots. Isaiah Hartenstein, man, bring up nightmares for me, wishing he was back on the Knicks, starting 7 for 7, hitting every single flip shot from wherever he was on the court. Isaiah Joe spraying in threes, Aaron Wiggins spraying threes, Caruso locking down both Bane and Ja Morant at different points. And to your point, on the other end of the floor, embarrassing effort from the Memphis Grizzlies. I can't really explain it, so I hope Joe Mullinax, who gets paid to explain everything going on in Memphis, can give us some notes.
A lot of folks have a lot of opinions coming out of Game 1 of Grizzlies Thunder. The only opinion that really matters is the reality that it's only one game. Memphis is down 1. The Thunder have to get to 4. Looks pretty likely here in this moment, but let's calm down a moment. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and it looked bad. I'm not trying to make it seem like the Memphis Grizzlies are all of a sudden going to become the better team. Thunder in 4, Thunder in 5 at most is a logical place to get to, especially if the Grizzlies stars keep playing the way that they played in Game 1. However, important to remember, a quick turnaround. Memphis clinches the last playoff spot in the Western Conference on Friday night. They play at noon, essentially, almost 1 o'clock there in Oklahoma City. OKC had been rested and ready to go. Game 2 will be a better barometer of just how competitive or not competitive this series will be.
All right. Thanks, Joe. A little more optimistic than I would be, but I appreciate the perspective. Let's head over to Boston, where the Celtics got a little more than they bargained for against the Magic before ultimately pulling away in the second half, led by Derek White.
Boston Celtics get the easy 103-86 win. I say easy because the score was not particularly close. Celtics broke it open in the second half after a big second quarter by the Orlando Magic. Drew Holiday was a difference maker in the third quarter, pushing the tempo. The Celtics were not getting a ton of three-point attempts. In fact, they only finished with 37, which is well below what they normally shoot. But they made 16 of them, thank you, Derek White and Drew Holiday. Holiday in the third quarter was pushing the pace, getting the Celtics, even after misses, up the floor so they can beat that Orlando defense, not let Orlando get set, and it started to pay off. Derek White was huge. He hit 7 of 12 from 3. He had 30 points. On a night where Jaylen Brown was good and looked explosive early, but didn't score a ton. Jason Tatum did not shoot well. Peyton Pritchard off the bench was big. Really, the guard play made the big difference. Orlando was so focused on cutting the Jays and Porzingis off that Boston's just too deep. Got too many players that can go off. So the Celtics take Game 1. The numbers that we expected coming in, Orlando not being able to shoot, but still making it tough for Boston for large portions of this game, held true. Let's see what happens if the Jays can bounce back in Game 2.
Celtics' two best offensive weapons, Jason Tatum, arguably, and Kristaps Porzingis combined 9 for 31. Swipa doesn't matter at all. Celtics roll in the second half. Magic gets an incredible performance from Paolo Banchero, right? 36 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, no help from anyone else. And I don't know about you, I just kind of walk away from this game feeling like Boston can play like a C-plus game, and Orlando is just not in the same universe from a firepower perspective.
Again, it's a very similar story. Paolo has a really good game. Franz had a decent game. They just don't, like KCP, Wendell Carter Jr., Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, Caleb Houston. They just don't have anyone else that can pressure Boston. And the issue with Boston is if you allow Boston to just sit back, feel comfortable, and you don't force their defense to suffer on the inside especially, then you have no chance of beating them. And then on the other end, they want to get up a lot of shots, but they also have guys that can get off the dribble, get to their spots, get to the free throw line, get to the rim, and then also create other three-point opportunities for other folks. And again, very similar to the SGA story earlier, Jason Tatum, 17 points today on 22 shots. Inefficient, made 1 3-pointer today, but had 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and they just take care of business on a very mediocre game by the Boston Celtics. So they should be the favorite out of the Eastern Conference, man, and I think they're going to make quick work of this series as well.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. Let's hear from Philip Rossman-Reich, though, to see if there are any reasons for optimism coming out of Orlando after this one.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic here at TD Garden as the Orlando Magic fall to the Boston Celtics 103-86. And in a lot of ways, this game went exactly how would you expect it to do. When the Magic made mistakes, the Celtics simply punished them and often punished them with three-point shooting. 3-point difference was a huge factor in this game as we expected. But where this game really turned is in the Magic's turnovers and their mistakes that they made and how Boston made them pay. The fact of the matter is, Orlando cannot survive if they're making mistakes. Orlando cannot survive if they're losing the points on the margins. It's a 26-6, fast break point difference. It's a 21-10 second chance point difference. Even though the Magic were getting these opportunities, especially on second chance points early in the game, even though Orlando's getting these opportunities, Boston is winning those battles and winning those points. Orlando cannot afford to lose those battles on the margins because Celtics have a wider margin for error. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner were excellent once again. Paolo with 36 in this game, Franz with more than 20. They did their part. Orlando got very little else offensively. We kind of expect that to happen, but the Magic lost the game everywhere else, and that's why the margin was so big and why the Magic have a lot of questions to answer before game.
Orlando finishes this game with only 2 players in double figures. You know who they are. Franz Wagner does not score for a 20-minute stretch in the second half. It was just a little bit too much to overcome, even though I think Paolo Banchero, it just impressed everyone watching this game with his gutsiness, his shot making. Boston threw a bunch of different looks at him, a bunch of different defenders. I wouldn't be surprised if some doubles eventually come his way. But you know what? If you're Boston, you could say Paolo could have gotten 50 in this game. They still wouldn't have won. Incredible start to the third quarter for Derek White and Drew Holiday. Those two getting out transition, hitting threes, setting each other up on lobs. Like I just saw turning defense into offense. Peyton Pritchard, almost like a Steph Curry light in transition, the way they seek him out from 3, like hyper efficient start to this game. Outscored Orlando's bench by himself. The Magic play Corey Joseph for 26 minutes and he's scoreless. I think that is all that needs to be said about this one. But let's move on to the other favorite in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about them in just a sec here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, what's up, guys? We are back to wrap up another thrilling episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Playoffs are here. Playoffs are rocking, and in the Eastern Conference, unlike the West, the favorites are rocking. The Cleveland Cavaliers 121-100 over the Miami Heat. But let's head over to Cleveland and hear from Danny Cunningham to hear how the number 1 seed Cavs cruised in the fourth quarter to a big Game 1 win.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Arena after the Cleveland Cavaliers take a 1-0 lead over the Miami Heat. Let's talk about this one for 94 feet. Ty Jerome's first playoff game. You wouldn't have known it. He had 28 points, was awesome in this game. If I would have told you this back in October that the Miami Heat would have to trap Ty Jerome near the half-court line to try and get the basketball out of his hands in the playoffs. You definitely would not have believed me, but that happened at a certain point on Sunday night. Donovan Mitchell was awesome as well. He scored 30 points, 7th straight game one for him that he's had at least 30 points. Also thought he did a lot of the little things really, really well. He had 4 steals in this game too. And then Darius Garland, he had 27 points, hit 5 threes. I thought that he had a really strong performance in this one. I think it's a really good sign that both he and Donovan had good games on the same night, because that has not been the most common thing in the second half of this season for the Cavs. Now they have a couple of days off. Game 2, Wednesday night, right back here at Rocket Arena. We will see if the Cavs can take a 2-0 lead. I will talk to you after that.
Swipa. Ty Jerome, New York legend, scores 20 of the final 28 points for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They own the fourth quarter after Miami made it somewhat interesting late in the third.
Yeah, thanks to Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. Yeah. But look, Ty Jerome is crazy. Darius Garland's crazy. Donovan Mitchell's crazy. And then you pair them with Jarrett Allen and with Evan Mobley. They have a tremendous team. And you didn't even give a great DeAndre Hunter game today. He didn't even score. Only played 16 minutes. But they have, I believe, about 8 guys on the roster that you can actually trust, including Sam Merrill and even Dean Wade, if you want to add a 9th or 10th person on the roster that can contribute at a high level for this team, depending on the matchup. And today, look, I think that the Miami Heat, they're well coached. They're going to play hard. They're going to be disciplined for the most part. But at the end of the day, there is a huge talent advantage between this version of that team. And I honestly, man, I'm just looking at this like, I think that Cleveland could get out of here in 4, kind of just weird a talent level was today. And it was also the fact that, like, Donovan played really well, but they never really got pushed today. It got close. And even Miami had a lead early, but you just see the machine that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Gavin, they score efficiently almost every single time down the floor because they believe in their process, whether it's an open 3-pointer or getting to the lane and finishing a dunk or a layup. They just have like one of the most perfect versions of the modern offense you can ask for through Kenny Atkinson, and they just blew the game open come second half.
There was a stat earlier this year. Their shooting splits as a team were equivalent to prime Kevin Durant. I mean, it is just a historically efficient offense. I had the exact same takeaway you did. There's just such a power in not playing below average players, and I think to some extent that is what makes the Thunder so great, the Celtics so great, the Cavs so great. Heck, even the Timberwolves I would maybe put into that category. Like there's no weak spot. And on any given night, like DeAndre Hunter doesn't have it. Ty Jerome is snaking pick and rolls and flipping in and ones and bombing deep threes. Like in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, he looked like Michael Jordan in that third quarter, right? The up and under switch hands layups was one of the best finishes I've ever seen in a playoff game. And he had 2 more that were similar. Darius Garland, cold start finishes, 5 for 9 from 3. Evan Mobley on both ends. I mean, it just a ridiculous game from the Cleveland backcourt. Miami side of things, really impressive showing from Davion Mitchell. I just thought there wasn't quite enough initiation there for them to really threaten, really push this Cleveland defense. But you know what? I'm not the expert. Wes Goldberg is. Let's hear from him.
Miami Heat lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers in game 1. There's a lot of things that you could point to from this game. Ty Jerome erupting in the fourth quarter, probably swinging this game. But for the most part, this was closer than I think Cleveland expected it to be. Miami was hanging in there for a lot of this game up until Jerome just went off and carried Cleveland to this win. But the big question now for Miami going from game 1 into game 2 is how can they make things easier on offense? They got just 5 shots at the rim the entire game. Miami did a lot of their work in the mid-range, but that is not going to be sustainable against this Cleveland Cavaliers team that is number 1 in offense in the NBA. The Heat have to figure out a way to get better shots in the half court. They have to figure out a way to get in transition more often to make things easier on their half court offense. And they have to figure out a way to generate more shots at the rim, get more 3-point attempts up, and get Tyler Hero going, who was taken out of most of this game. So the Heat have a lot of questions that they got to answer on offense if they want to make this a series. Check out Locked On Heat for more.
Tyler Hero goes from the 10:05 mark in the 10:01 mark in the third quarter to the 3:05 mark of the fourth without a field goal. This is the second year in a row where Miami's essentially asking him to be a superstar for them to have a chance. And at least he's obviously been much better this year, deserving All-Star this year. I don't know if he quite has that in him yet, but Swipa, unless you have some final thoughts on the Heat, how about we wrap this one up? are your 5 most impressive teams from weekend 1 of the NBA playoffs?
Man, number 1 is the Wolves. Like the just the detonation of just supreme athleticism they had over the Lakers was spectacular. I'll say number 2, the Nuggets, given how they responded and the fact that they were down 15. This is their 8th playoff win since 2019 after trailing at least 15 points in the game, which obviously is most in the NBA. After that, the Thunder, it's the Thunder. They blew them open. And then probably 4 or 5, I would say number 4, Boston, and then number 5, Cleveland. But I think there's something to be said that 3, 4, and 5 are basically your best teams in the NBA this year. They just took care of business.
Yeah, I think this may be controversial. I have the same top 3 different order. I'm going Oklahoma City 1. I think the fact that it looks so easy and the fact that it looks so easy all season has been held against them. Probably shouldn't take it for granted that they beat a Memphis team that, like, obviously very injured, maybe not the same group they were earlier in the year, but like statistically was an excellent team this year. And Oklahoma City made them look like a high school squad. Minnesota 2nd, same reasons. Denver 3rd, same reasons. I had the Warriors at 4th, and like not. Cool. I think maybe the way I'm doing this ranking is like relative to my expectation. Just to your point earlier, the shot making, the clutch plays from like the role guys that haven't actually been there in these types of settings before really showed me something. And then just the magic of having like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, like two of the all-time playoff greats of the last 20 years on the same team, maybe both like a little bit past the tippy top of their prime, but man, like big moments, they can still summon it. They can still absolutely control a game, even if they're exerting less effort to do so. Those 2 are incredible. And then I was torn between actually the Knicks and the Pacers for 5th and 6th, just because I felt like both the Celtics and Cavs played with their food a little bit. I call it bias because it probably is. I went with the Knicks at 5, mostly because of the 4th quarter. I thought through 3 quarters, the Knicks would have been on my least impressive team list, but the level of defense they got from Karl-Anthony Towns at the level on Cade Cunningham in the screen, picking up 4 steals. I believe finishing that game with 6 stocks. OG Anunoby 7 steals plus blocks in that game. Like, I did not know if the Knicks could play defense like that. They did earlier in the season. We haven't seen it in a really long time. To me, that potentially, I still think they probably lose to Boston in 5. Elevates their ceiling a little bit. Swiper, I found a way to shout out my Knicks. I'm happy. Hope you're happy too. This is Locked on NBA Game Night. We'll talk to you every single night. This is every game, every night here on Locked on NBA Game Night.